I had been searching online for weeks for the perfect dresser. Something with character, sturdy wood, and aged brass handles. When I finally found a listing nearby, I felt a mix of excitement and relief. The seller was friendly, messaging quickly, and said it was in excellent condition. They even offered to help me carry it to my car. I agreed. The day I picked it up, the street was quieter than usual. Even for a suburban afternoon, there was something off. The air felt heavy, and the occasional breeze seemed colder than it should have been. I parked and approached the house. Its yard was overgrown, the grass curling over the edges of the sidewalk. The house itself was simple, but the windows were dirty, reflecting a distorted image of the street. A man in his 50s greeted me at the door. He smiled politely, holding the dresser as I inspected it. "Careful with that, it's older than it looks," he said, his voice calm but oddly measured. His gaze lingered longer than expected, following my hands as I examined the wood, tracing the edges of the carved patterns. I handed him the cash. He nodded and didn't say much more, only watched as I carried it to my car. Once home, I placed the dresser in my bedroom. It looked perfect. The wood caught the afternoon light, highlighting the intricate details of the carvings. I stepped back, satisfied, and went about my evening. Around midnight, I woke to a noise. A soft creaking, almost imperceptible at first. I froze. My bedroom door was closed. I listened. The sound came again, slow, deliberate, the faint whisper of wood rubbing against wood. My eyes darted around the room. The dresser drawers were moving. I wasn't dreaming. They were shifting slightly as though someone, or something, was testing them. I approached cautiously. As I reached for a drawer, it stopped. I held my breath, my heart hammering, and slowly backed away. That night, I barely slept. The following days, the dresser continued its silent disturbances. Drawers would be slightly open in the morning, items inside subtly repositioned. I live alone. No one else had a key. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Maybe I'd been careless. But the precision of the movements suggested otherwise. I installed cameras in the bedroom. Late at night, I recorded footage obsessively. At first, nothing appeared. But over time, subtle movements became clear. Drawers shifting slightly, almost imperceptibly, as if being nudged from the inside. I began to dread being alone in the room. Weeks passed and my paranoia escalated. I started hearing whispers, not words, just low murmurs, coming from the dresser, faint enough that I could not understand them, yet persistent enough to keep me awake. Shadows in the corner of the room seemed to lean closer when I looked away. The dresser had become an uninvited observer, patient and deliberate. I tried moving it to another wall, thinking it might help. It didn't. The subtle disturbances continued. One night, I awoke to a sound worse than before, a low metallic scraping as if the brass handles were being turned slowly by invisible hands. I dared not approach. Now, months later, the dresser sits in the corner of my bedroom. I avoid it. Every creak, every whisper, every subtle movement is a reminder that I am not alone. The furniture is patient. It watches. And I know deep down that it waits for the moment I become careless. Story number 5. The Old Book, expanded version, long form. I had been hunting for this book for months. A first edition, rare, one that collectors whispered about online. When I found a listing on a small site, I didn't hesitate. The seller assured me it was in pristine condition. I mailed the money immediately and waited impatiently. The day it arrived, the package felt heavier than expected. I opened it carefully. The book smelled faintly of old paper and ink. Its leather cover was soft, worn in just the right places, and the pages were crisp. I ran my fingers over the title embossed on the front. Excitement mixed with unease. Rare items always carried a strange energy. The first night, I opened the book to the first chapter. Nothing seemed unusual. But as I read, I noticed passages describing things only I could know. Small details about my apartment, minor events in my life. At first, I laughed nervously. Coincidence, I told myself. Impossible, but maybe coincidence. The second chapter chilled me. It described events that had just occurred that afternoon. I hadn't shared these details with anyone. My stomach twisted. Each subsequent chapter seemed to anticipate my life. The things I did the following day, the minor decisions I was about to make. Soon, the book became impossible to ignore. Lines appeared in chapters one hadn't read, describing thoughts I hadn't yet had. It felt alive, responsive to me. When I closed it, I could almost sense its presence in the room, a quiet hum of awareness. Sleep became difficult. I would awaken to the faintest sound of pages turning, even though the book was closed. Shadows in my apartment seemed to lengthen toward it. I began leaving lights on at night, but the darkness always found its way into my peripheral vision, carrying whispers I couldn't quite catch. Weeks passed. I tried to leave the book untouched, placing it on a high shelf. But sometimes, it was on my desk, open to a page I hadn't been reading. Once, I found a chapter describing a small argument I had the day before in exact detail. I called the seller. No answer. The website listing was gone. I realized with a sinking feeling that whoever had owned it before me, or whatever energy lingered in its pages, was now absent. The book had chosen me. Now, months later, I live in quiet fear of the book. I avoid it when possible, but at night I can feel it, aware, patient, always watching. I know it will not stop until it has read every detail of my life. And I fear the day it decides I have revealed too much.